if you need a title for this, pick your path. Pick your path is what we're talking about. And since we've started in the book of Proverbs, at least this go around, we've done this. We've walked through Proverbs before, but since we've been in Proverbs, one of the themes that jumps out at me in my reading, and I've read the book of Proverbs easily 100 times, probably more than that. I've read it a gang of time. 100 is probably low. But one of the things that jumped out at me this time, just reading through and going through slowly, is some of the repetition. There's a lot of repetition. We keep hearing some of the same things over and over again. And one of the things that I've learned as a teacher, started teaching this last year, and I've been teaching the Bible for a minute, but it's different. It's way different in a classroom. But it's important to repeat the things that are of great significance. And so when I see things get repeated, to me, those stand out as being things of significance. And so one of those things that jumps out at me, we kind of see like every section that gets divided, depending on what Bible you're looking in, it may have little section headers. Like here, there's a section header. That's not part of Scripture. That's not a verse. That's something that folks put in. Like this one here in chapter 4 says two ways of life. This one down here says the straight path. It's divided up. But what I noticed is in this Bible, because the other one I'm gonna read out of doesn't have section headers. What I noticed is most of these sections, most of these divisions start with an attention getter. Like the father, the parent, the teacher gets the attention of the child again. And the way he does it is by calling out, saying, listen to what I'm saying. Pay attention to what I'm saying, like, over and over and over again. And when I was a kid, and I was getting, maybe a lecture or something, y'all were really good kids. I was a decent kid, but that didn't stop me from getting some lectures. Y'all probably didn't get lectures because you were probably just amazing kids. But when you get lectured, a lot of times a parent or whoever is lecturing you in a disciplinary way, like, are you listening to me? Are you getting what I'm saying? You hear me? Are you following what I'm saying? Well, this happens in here. Like I like to remind, like when you read scripture, it's good to read different translations, but ultimately, like read it in the voice that you use in your head when you are reading social media posts. Or when you just have like dialogue with yourself, like speak in a language that you speak. And when I speak in a language that I speak, and I see these, the father saying to the son, saying to the child, listen, pay attention. It's like, are you hearing me? Are you following what I'm saying? I need you to get this. It's really important that you get this. And we see it in a few places. I'll call a few of them out in chapter 1, verses 8 and 9. Says, listen, my son, to your father's instruction. Don't reject your mother's teaching. So listen, my child. Listen. Listen to the teaching. Don't reject instruction. Chapter 2, where we were last week, it starts out, my son, if you accept my words. So again, it's talking about receiving the teaching. My son, if you accept my words and store my commandments within you. So we've got, listen, my son. We've got, my son, accept my words. Chapter 3, verse 1. My son, don't forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commands. Repeating once again, listen to what I'm saying. You listen to the words, keep them with you. Don't let this come in one ear and go out the other. Chapter 4, there's a few of them at the beginning. Chapter 4, verse 1. Listen, sons, to a father's discipline. Pay attention so that you may gain understanding. Chapter 4, verse 10. Listen, my son, accept my words. Listen, my child, accept my words. And then in verse 20, my son, pay attention to my words. Listen closely to my sayings. So the teacher is constantly re-engaging the son's attention, the child's attention. This is one of the reasons why Why I've made the commitment to read an entire chapter and not just read a couple verses. Reading a verse of the day is great. Like if your daily if your daily bread, remember those little devotional books, the daily bread. Anyway, if your daily bread, your daily devotional, or whatever is like, you get the verse of the day, or like the verse of the day, it gets posted on Twitter, Instagram. If that's all you get, I'm glad you're getting something. Some days that's all I get is what the verse of the day. And I might keep going on the Bible app and get the little devotional or a prayer or something like that. But we don't get the full context when we do that. We can definitely get fed. The Spirit can speak to us, but we don't get the full context. And if you read this wisdom literature, which is what Proverbs is, this section of the Bible, Proverbs, Job, actually. So Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. There's wisdom literature in here. Psalms is more poetry, but Job is wisdom literature. But when we're reading this, we only read like one or two verses or a little paragraph. Like, we'll get something, but we don't get these attention grabbers. Like, if you sat down and you read this first section of Proverbs, which goes through, I think, chapter 9, if you read all of that in one sitting, you would see and you would hear these phrases being repeated. And my son, my child, listen to what I'm saying. Pay attention to the words that I'm telling. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? You would get that, and it would sink in a little bit more. And so that's an encouragement for all of us to like really read. And when we have time, or make some time to read larger sections of text, so that we can really get into the conversation that the writer is trying to have with us. Uh, so there's a constant re-engagement for our attention. And the reason I point that out, because there are other things that are repeated as well, but the reason I point out this constant re-engagement of our attention is in this day and age, that is one of the things that is sought after the most, is our attention. Ads on social media, that's our attention for sale. An ad on social media is our attention for sale. I remember when they increased the number of ads on Twitter, and every 3 tweets, there was an ad. You scroll 3 tweets, another ad. You scroll 3, another ad. And they are selling our attention. They're selling our attention. I remember when they did when they first made the change, when you like something and you see the numbers change, like on a slot machine. None of y'all gamble. Some of us do, but the numbers, when there's likes and retweets, the numbers would change like a slot machine. They did that on purpose because of the way that gets with our brain. But our attention is for sale, and because our attention is so valuable, even in this text, which is dated back in antiquity, 3,000 years or so, there's a constant grabbing for our attention. And so we can't skip over that. Excuse me, we cannot skip over the need for our attention to be on what we are being taught. We cannot escape the fact that our attention gets pulled in so many different directions. In front of me right now, I have a computer and 2 phones. Now, all the cameras are not on, but it's literally like 4 cameras pointed at me. Only 2 of them are on. But the point is, there are devices, and on my computer is multiple windows open. It's different social media apps and different things, all these different things in places that are trying to get my attention. And this constant reminder that this teacher, that this father is giving, pay attention, listen to what I'm saying. Don't let this come in one ear and go out the other. And that's just something I want us to hold on to, the importance of giving our attention to God's word, giving our attention to godly wisdom, giving our attention to godly teaching, to sound teaching, giving our attention to the Holy Spirit, who teaches us and reveals things to us that are words just for us. Like the only word of God, like the Bible itself is, like, we call this the word of God, but the word of God is Jesus is the word of God. And one of the things that Jesus said when he was tempted in the wilderness, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. And so God speaks to you and God speaks to me. And there's a word of God that comes to me that is for me that might not be for you. You ain't prayed a prayer that I prayed. And so the word of God that comes to me ain't for you. But every word that proceeds from the mouth of God, we need to have our attention fixed on that. We need to have our ears open and in tune to the voice of God, to the voice of the Spirit, know what it sounds like, so that our attention can go back to where it needs to be. Because there's some distractions out there. I've shared before, I have ADHD. The distractions be distracting. Like, if nothing else is going to work on any given day, the distraction is going to work. Something's going to pull my attention. I could go on that forever. Looking directly at chapter 4, Proverbs chapter 4, verses 20 through 27, I want to read it again in the NRSV, New Revised Standard Version. And I like the way this reads for a few reasons. One of which is it's a bit more gender neutral. It doesn't say my son, it says my child, and so that is it's already speaking to everyone. But you are if you are a lady, which many of you are, it can be a challenge. I imagine it can be a challenge to read scripture and everything. It keeps being addressed to dudes, but really it's being addressed to all of us. And so I like reading out of translations that kind of neutralize that, so that it includes everyone who needs to hear it. It makes it just takes that extra little barrier away. Proverbs chapter 4, verses 20 through 27 from the NRSV, it says, "My child, be attentive to my words, incline your ear to my sayings. Do not let them escape from your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them and healing to all their flesh. Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. Put away from you crooked speech and put devious talk far from you. Let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. Keep straight the path of your feet, and all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil." And I'm going to go back and forth a little bit between the NRSV and the CSB. But what I found here, what one of the footnotes and the commentary author in that Bible pointed out, that in this passage we find what they're calling the anatomy of the wise. The anatomy of the wise. There are different body parts that we should be mindful of that help us be wise, gain understanding, and walk in godly wisdom. Those body parts, real quick, and then we'll point out where they show up in this passage: ears, eyes, heart, mouth, and feet. Ears, eyes, heart, mouth, and feet. Ears, eyes, heart, mouth, feet. And just walking through here, and if you're writing something down, the correlation that we can make for our ears, eyes, heart, mouth, and feet. Our eyes are about our attention. Where is your attention fixed? Where is my attention fixed? Did I say eyes? I mean ears. Ears is attention. What am I listening to? What am I giving my attention to? Ears, attention. Eyes is about focus. What am I looking at? And it's possible, and I do this a lot. Again, as someone with ADHD, if we're in a conversation, sometimes you can have my eye contact, or you can have my attention, but just you're gonna have to choose sometimes. And I might not be looking at you, but I might listen better if I'm not looking at you. And it might be a little something else besides ADHD in there with that. But ears, attention. Eyes is about focus. Where is my focus? What am I looking at? What am I letting into my eyes? Where am I looking? And we'll read and see how what the implication of that. The heart is our inner self. Like your heart is like your conscience. uh it's our mind, our inner self. And then mouth is our speech, and our feet, that is the path. Our feet give us direction. And again, we're talking about picking our path. Pick your path. And so if we're going to pick our path, when we pick our path, because we pick a path, not if, we pick a path. We're always picking a path. And when we go through this anatomy, we can see like what we are giving these different parts of ourselves to determine what path we are on and what path we're likely to go down. So again, back at Proverbs chapter 4, verse 20, this is about our ears. My child, be attentive to my words, incline your ear to my sayings. And the CSB says, my son, pay attention to my words, listen closely to my sayings. Pay attention. This is about our attention. Because again, you could be looking anywhere. You could be, if you drive, you could be behind the wheel. You can have your hands on the wheel in the right place, and you can have your eyes on the road, and your mind be somewhere else completely. Or maybe something you're listening to on the radio. I like to do audiobooks. Or sometimes my kids are in the back seat, the little ones in particular, and they be going at it. And so I'm looking at the road, but my attention is in the back seat because I'm trying to keep them from harming each other, because my car is little and they can reach each other from just across the way. Yeah, it's a mess. And so I can be looking at the road, but my attention's in the back seat because I'm listening to what they got going on back there. And so again, my child, be attentive. Give attention to my wisdom. Give attention to my words. Incline your ear to my understanding. Listen closely to my saying. Listen to what's being said. Our ears determine where our attention is. Now, some of us get itchy ears and we like to hear a little gossip. We like to hear what folks got going on. What is the tea? I want to know what the tea is, because like, nobody likes to be left out. We want to be involved. We want to be included. But we got to be careful what we listen to, what we give our attention to. Uh, I've personally made it a point to avoid uh, like gossip columns and gossip posts. Now it's, Instagram uh, sites created, and their sole purpose is just to spread gossip. They sometimes they give like actual news, but a lot of times it's just gossip. I go out of my way not to read anything or watch videos about celebrity relationships. Because why? For what purpose? Why am I giving my attention to what they got going on and they relate? I have a relationship of my own. I got a wife. I got children. I have siblings and cousins and parents, and I've got all these relationships. I need to be listening to the people in my life, and give my attention to the relationships that I'm actually involved in. Again, if you like to consume that stuff, I'm not judging you. I'm simply saying what I do for me, myself. I need to give my attention. I need to be listening to what the people who I'm in relationship with are talking about. I need to hear what they are saying, give my attention to that so that I can be committed and involved and know what's going on in those relationships. It would be a shame to know everything that's going on. Several years ago, back when Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were together, I knew more than I wanted to about their relationship. Most of, and like, let's be honest, most of what we know about other people's relationships is against our will, right? It was against my will. I had to learn how to not be involved with all that stuff. But it just seemed like we knew everything that was going on with them. like everything. And there's some other ones now, but I don't be paying attention. That's like the last one I remember. But it's going to be constantly thrown in our faces. The words are going to constantly be out there. And it would be a shame for me to know more about what Brad and Angelina had going on than the actual relationships that I am a part of, because I'm listening to what they saying and speculating about, ooh, this is probably what they did, or ooh, this is probably what they had going on. Or I bet that she did this, or you know what? All men are trash anyway. He probably did this. Like, why am I consuming myself with that? Like, I'm a man in the relationships that I'm in. Let me not be a trash man in the relationship that I got going on. And so our ears give attention. What are we giving our attention to? What are we listening to? What we listen to, our ears, that's where our attention is. The next one, eyes. This is about our focus. Verse 21, and this shows up a couple times in this passage. Verse 21, do not let them escape from your sight. Keep them within your heart. And then also in verse 25, let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. And so when we get to verse 25, we'll touch on this a little bit more. But verse 21, don't lose sight. So I'm listening. I've got my attention to the words of wisdom. Now don't lose sight of those things. If you remember last week, we talked about let me look at my notes so I can remember what it was. There was in chapter 2, we were accepting words of teaching, and then we were storing up commands. So storing up commands and not losing sight of them is kind of the same thing. Like, don't put it away somewhere where you can't see it. Keep it somewhere. Now that you got it, keep it somewhere where you got visibility to it, because out of sight, out of mind. If I ain't looking at it, it's a good chance that I'm gonna forget about it. I went to the store twice today. Two times I went to the store today, and I had to keep a list because, in spite of all of the evidence, the years, the decades of evidence, I convinced myself that I can remember a short list of things to get from the store, in spite of all the evidence. And so I went to the store twice today, knowing that I needed to get taco seasoning. And do you think in either of those trips to the store, I got taco seasoning? No, I didn't. I even had a third chance. I left the house again, had another chance to go get some taco seasoning. Do you think I stopped to get some taco seasoning? No, no, I did not. Why? Because out of sight, out of mind, wouldn't think about it, wasn't feeling hungry at the moment, so I wouldn't even think about food. And so, three opportunities today. And because I ain't make a list, out of sight, out of mind, my wife had to go get the taco seasoning after she worked all day. What kind of sense that all I had to do was make a list. Keep sight, keep it in view. What we're focused on, what we focus on makes all the difference. The things that we focus on make so much difference. And when there are setbacks, because we all have setbacks, I know that we do, every single one of us, we get to choose where our focus is going to be. Am I going to focus on what happened? Am I going to focus on how I feel I was wrong, or how things went wrong or did not go the way I wanted them to go? Or am I going to keep my focus on the path that I'm headed down, what I want to happen? Am I going to focus on what I don't want, or am I going to focus on what I do want? I have found, and I continue to learn that if I give too much focus to the things that I'm trying to avoid, those end up being the things that I run into. When I give too much attention and place too much focus on what I'm trying to avoid, that's what I end up running into, because that's where my focus is. Some of us, if you are born of a certain generation, and this is probably every generation, but I know it's mine. Many of us have become fixated on ways of being that our parents, that our elders had, that we don't want to repeat. I'm not gonna be like my father, or I'm definitely not gonna be like my mama. But we focus so much on what we're not gonna be like. We grow up, and then folks end up telling us, like, you just like your daddy. Like, I've been trying to avoid that all my life. No, you haven't. You have not been trying to avoid. That's what you've been focused on all this time. How am I supposed to avoid something that I stay focused on? Instead, I need to focus on, rather than focusing on who I don't want to be, I need to focus on who I want to be. Who do I want to be known as? What type of person do I want to be? Yeah, I got mess ups. I got mistakes. I got setbacks. I got things that aren't mistakes that are just wrong that I did on purpose. Rather than focusing on those, let's focus on where we're going. I had an exchange this week with some folks on Twitter, some people I know uh, about banning the box. Banning the box. That is an agenda that I am for. On job applications, there is a box that asks, "Have you ever been convicted of a misdemeanor?" And then there's another box, "Have you ever been convicted of a felony?" And what happens is people who have done something, they were convicted, they paid their penalty, their debt to society, they're moving forward trying to be productive and get a job, and they have to check a box that focuses on what happened in the past. And a lot of times, and this, it's racism all up and through there. A lot of times that holds people back. It keeps them from being able to move forward in life and being who it is that they're focused on being, because there's so much focus on what happened in the past. Now, does that mean that we don't need to run background checks? Absolutely not, because there's some folk that don't need to be doing certain things. There's some folk who shouldn't be working with kids, right? But we should not be tied down. People should not be tied down by things that happen. There should be focus on what we're trying to do, where we're trying to go. And I jumped ahead to verse 25 in that, but we'll touch on it again for a hot second when we get there. Moving on to verse 23. So we've got our ears. That's where our attention, what we're listening to, giving attention to, that's our ears. Our eyes, it has to do with our focus. What are we looking at? Because if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. Moving on to verse 23, this talks about the heart. Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. The CSB says in verse 23, guard your heart above all else, for it is the source of life. We've got to guard our hearts. We have to keep our hearts. It says with all vigilance. And this is our inner self, our inner being. And so I'm not going to go down the whole list and go down this road too far, but think of all the self things, self confidence and self assurance, all of the self stuff, how we view ourselves, how we think of ourselves. Well, like, what's going on in the core of me? What's going on at the core, on the inside? Not just what I say, with the things that I think. Jesus said that from the heart is what comes out of our mouths. And so no matter how much we try to fix our speech and say the right things, which is the next thing, but no matter how much we try to do that and try to always say the right things, find yourself in the right position, in the right situation. By right one, I mean the wrong one. And then the stuff that's on the inside, then it's really going to come out. You ever been in an argument with somebody and it gets a little heated, and then somebody, it wasn't you, probably the other person, says something that's like real, that cuts a little bit. It's like, oh, okay. So thank you for telling me how you feel. Thank you for finally telling me how you feel about me. I am so glad, and that's when we start clapping. I am so glad that this finally came out, because I knew it all along, right? Because out of the heart flows the mouth. So we got to check our inner selves. Guard your heart. Keep your heart with all vigilance. From it springs. It is the source of life. From it springs all life. Like, that is what's going to determine our life, is what's in our heart. And this even gets to when we talk about our conscience and our consciousness. This even gets to how we handle and deal with our mental health, because I live with depression. I'm medicated for depression and anxiety. It's just something that's going to be there, and I'm treated for it, and I got my medication for it. It's something that's always going to be there. If I don't take my medication and I fall off of it, don't fill a prescription, I'm gonna start to have issues, and my outlook is going to start to change because of what's going on the inside. So when we talk about our inner self, This also pertains to our mental health. And so it's important to guard your mental health, guard your heart, guard your inner self, because the life that we ultimately end up living is all going to flow from in here. The things that we end up saying, it's all going to flow from in here, all of it. And so when I say rude and mean things, and when we say, I love this one. When we say things and we say that was out of character for me. Uh, I thought about that one time. Like, what does it mean to be out of character? Well, an actor and actress, when they are in character, they're pretending to be someone else for the purpose of the production, right? And so, if I am out of character, that means I slipped out of who I was pretending to be for this production. But what I said came from in here. I slipped out of the character that I was presenting to everyone, and then you got to see the real me in that moment, and that's who we gotta guard. That's who we gotta keep guard of with all vigilance. This next one, verse 24, mouth. This has to do with our speech, the things that actually come out of our mouths. Verse 24 says, "Put away from you crooked speech, and put devious talk far from you." The CSB in verse 24, it says, "Don't let your mouth speak dishonestly. Don't let your lips talk deviously." Excuse me. So here's a place where two of these things really, all of them work together, but two of these really work together. Our ears, what we're giving our attention to, and then our mouths, what we are giving our speech to. Again, a lot of stuff is put in our face, and we know stuff about other people against our will, but we don't have to talk about it. You might hear stuff, you might overhear a conversation and have some information that is juicy. But if it ain't your business to talk about, then just don't let it come out your mouth. Like, you can't help that you heard what you heard. Okay. But what am I giving my speech to? And how am I talking about other people? Am I speaking of others with uplifting words, even when I don't like what they're doing or what they have done? Am I using words that build up, or am I using words that tear down? And then this applies to myself. Are the things that come out of my mouth, are they things that build me up, or are they things that tear me down? I personally, me, myself, I have a long-standing challenge where I will downplay my own self, my own intellect, my own achievements. I will verbally downplay them. Like, well, it's not that. It's not that. It was cool. It was all right. I think I did okay. And I'm very self-critical. When I say those things, again, what we say flows from our hearts. And so if I'm not careful, I'm going to say things that I shouldn't be saying, or that are unhelpful, or that are unuseful, and thereby I'm not being wise. I'm not living as a wise person. So we need to. I love the way the CSB says it. Don't let your mouth speak dishonestly, and don't let your lips talk deviously. It's the dishonesty for me. Like, let's live in truth, and let's speak truth. Let's not be deceptive. Let's not be honest, or excuse me, let's not be dishonest. Let's live in and let's speak the truth. Verse 25 again goes back to the eyes. The eyes are our focus. So we've got our ears, which are about our attention, what we give our attention to, our eyes, which is our focus, our heart, which is our inner self, our mouth, our speech, the things what comes out of us. And again, the eyes here in verse 25, let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. Again, we're talking about picking our path. What we listen to, what we give our attention to is going to affect and influence what path we actually walk down. What we our inner heart, our inner self, our hearts, that's going to impact, is going to give direction to what path we go down. Our mouth, the things that we say, the stuff that we say, like, you cannot unsay something that has been said. The only thing that can be done to fix words that have already been said a lot of times is action and more words. But we can't take those words back. And so the path that I'm going down, if I say something that is offensive, and now it is necessary for me to issue an apology and make things right, my energy, my attention has to shift, and I have to go down the path of reconciliation because I messed something up. That takes the focus off of where we're supposed to be going. If we're supposed to be going somewhere together, doing something together, and I say something that offends you, that puts our path on pause because now the energy and attention is given to fixing what I said wrong. Let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. The CSB says, let your eyes look forward, fix your gaze straight ahead. Fix your eyes straight ahead. Don't look at all the other stuff. Just because it flash across your screen don't mean that you have to doesn't mean you have to like give it your focus. Just because you saw it, again, if you drive or you take public transit like a bus or something like that, and you end up in traffic, and you finally, the traffic's slowly moving, and you get up to the cause of the traffic, and it's an accident, but the accident's on the other side of the road, or it's off to the side of the road. So why are these lanes going slow? Because people are taking their eyes off of the path and they're looking at what's going on over here. Police will be there, paramedics will be there, fire department will be there. It's being handled, but me, who's on my way to the dentist or the store to get some taco seasoning, now I have looked over here and I'm giving my attention to something I can't do nothing about, ain't got nothing to do with me. It's already being handled. We got to keep our eyes on the path that we're supposed to be on the path that we have chosen, that we've decided we're going to be on. And then finally, verses 26 and 27, keep straight the path of your feet, and all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil. We got to look forward so we can go forward. If I'm running, if you've ever run track or you watch track, Olympics coming up this summer, uh, it, you gotta stay focused on your lane. Where is it I said I'm trying to go? Well, that's where I need to be looking. I start to swerving. When you run in track, you swerve into somebody else's lane, you get disqualified. That disqualifies us. When we get out of our lane, when I take my focus and I look another way, my feet start to go down a path that I ain't got no business being on. Don't make no turns. Stay on the path of wisdom. Stay on the path of wisdom. Stay on the path of wisdom. Don't go to the right. Don't go to the left. Stay on the path of wisdom. Stay on the path of wisdom. So again, the anatomy of the wise are our ears, our eyes, our heart, our mouth, our feet. Our ears is what we're giving attention to. We need to give our attention to wisdom, to wise teaching. Our eyes is about what we are focused on. Where are we looking? Our heart, our inner self. How are we and who are we on the inside? Because that is going to, from the heart flows the mouth, which is the next one, the mouth, our speech. What's coming out of us? There's all these things that we take in and the things that we're looking at, but what's coming out of us and how does that affect other people? Because the things that come out of us that impact other people, it impacts us. And it determines if I say, I'm going on this path, the straight and narrow. This is where I'm headed, but I'm running my mouth over here about all this stuff. Well, it don't sound. The stuff that's coming out of you don't sound like you really trying to be on that path. And then finally, our feet. Our feet are what give us direction. Our feet, where our feet go, that is the path ultimately. And so if I'm listening to this thing over here, my feet are going to be drawn towards listening over there. If my eyes are looking over here, then my feet are going to be drawn over in this direction. If my heart is ain't good, and I'm claiming I'm trying to walk on a good path, but on the inside I ain't right, that's going to make my feet go in the direction of my heart. And so if we're going to, when we pick our paths, And we do pick our path. We pick our paths by the things that we listen to, we give our attention to. We pick our path by the things that we look at, that we focus on. We pick our path by how well or not well we guard our hearts, our inner selves. We pick our path based on what comes out of us, our speech. We pick our path based on where we go. You ever hear "Don't talk about it, be about it"? Well, ultimately, where I walk, that says where I'm trying to go. That is my path. Where you see my footprints, that was my path. Doesn't mean it can't be corrected, but where I walk, that's where I was. And so the encouragement, the encouragement here, like we looked at the very beginning, is this repetition about where we give our attention. Where the teacher, the father, keeps on saying, "Listen, my child. Listen, my child. Pay attention, my child. Listen to what I'm saying. Pay attention to wisdom. Pay attention to these wise words. Hold on to them." Where we give our attention is going to determine our path. Let's pray.